Version 6.2 is shaking the meta with massive game-changing buffs to the Hexenzirkel characters. Some of these units are a part of the free Constellation Selector, which raises their value dramatically. In this guide, we will update my Constellation Selector tier list by going over each of these characters' buffs and seeing how they affected their value and placement on the tier list. Hello, welcome to Genshin Filter, your quick guide for everything Genshin. So let's get started! The Alakino and Zhongli banners are here, and I know topping up in-game can get really expensive. Here is how you can save money with today's sponsor, Loot Bar. Loot Bar is a safe, secure and reliable way to top up Genesis crystals, with up to 25% off compared to in-game prices. And now, with the Black Friday, there are no barriers and no minimum spend. Loot Bar's Black Friday sale is here for all users, new and old, from November 25th to December 1st. Tap my link to get to Loot Bar and claim a generous coupon, up to 10% off. Enjoy double points on your first order during the event. Use points to redeem rewards or offset future purchases. Loot Bar also supports other games like Honkai Star Rail and Withering Waves, so hit the link in the description or pin comment to try it yourself and start saving. And thank you Loot Bar for sponsoring this video. Let's do a quick breakdown of these new systems and how they affect each other, for those who need a reminder. If you're already familiar with these systems, you can skip to the tier list if you want. In version 6.0, alongside the release of Notcry, Genshin added two permanent systems. The main one we're focusing on today is to temper thyself and journey far. After doing your dailies for 8 weeks, you can choose one free constellation from a pool of characters released from Mondstadt up to Sumeru. This event repeats 4 times for a total of 4 constellations per full region cycle. The second system introduced is the option to raise characters to level 100 by using 3 Masterless Stella Fortuna, which you get from pulling characters you already have at C6. Raising your main hypercarry or reaction driver to level 100 gives roughly a 5 to 10% damage boost for hypercarries, and 10 to 20% for reaction drivers, which is a very impactful damage increase. Lastly, in version 6.2, Genshin is giving massive buffs to some of the oldest characters in the game belonging to the Hexenzirkel group. On top of buffing their talents and constellations, each of them also gets a special Hexenzirkel passive, making them meta-relevant again and strong enough to compete with some of the top units in the game. Mona, Albedo and Klee, which are part of the Hexenzirkel characters, are also a part of the Constellation Selector, so we'll go over each of them and see how the buffs and changes they received affected their constellation value, and their placement from the old tier list. Before we dive in, if you want a more in-depth explanation of the 6.0 systems, or want to hear my take on all the other characters' constellations, you can check out this video here. And if you want a complete breakdown of all the new Hexenzirkel buffs and changes, you can check this video here, where I go over all of them. The links are in the description. And while you are down there, I am also going to cover everything about Colombina in upcoming videos. So if that's something you want to see, make sure to subscribe to not miss it. So like we said in the last tier list video, the absolute best value by far is still working toward the Masterless Stella Fortuna by getting your standard characters to C6. This lets you raise characters to level 100, and no constellation in this pool will give you better meta value than that. That being said, let's talk about Mona first. Let me just do this thing real quick. Yep, that looks good now. Yeah, after the massive buffs she received, Mona is now easily the best standard character out of all of them. Her Hexenzirkel passive, when paired with another Hexarray character, extends her Omen duration by up to 13 seconds. Up until now, Mona's short uptime on her buff was really holding her back and reducing her value dramatically. But with this one change, it removes her biggest weakness and makes her a very solid unit even at C0. Her constellations were already good before the buffs, but now they take her even higher and make their value much more significant. Her C1 now grants a much higher damage bonus, 160% of its original value, to off-field characters who trigger hydro reactions. Her C2, in addition to having a chance to cast her charge attack automatically, now also makes her next normal attack after casting her burst perform a free charge attack, and grants an 80 elemental mastery buff to the team. Her C4, in addition to giving a team buff of 15% crit rate when someone attacks an enemy affected by an Omen, now also provides 15% crit damage to Hexarray characters. With her extended Omen duration, this is probably her strongest constellation to get. Her C6 gives her more damage on her next charge attack the longer she stays in her special sprint, up to a 180% damage bonus. Now she can also stack up this buff without using her sprint, simply by having enemies affected by her Omen. Additionally, her charge attack damage to enemies affected by an Omen increases by 200%, effectively tripling her charge attack damage, making Carry Mona a very strong option now. So yeah, she's now that good, to the point where it might even be better to try and get her to C6 first, even if you have other characters who are closer to their C6. If you want a full breakdown of the rest of the standard characters, you can check out this video, the link is in the description. Albedo is probably getting the biggest comeback ever. From being one of the weakest limited 5 stars in the game, he is now actually a great choice for any team's last slot, especially alongside other Geo characters. His kit buffs and Hexenzirkel passive both double his skill damage dramatically by allowing up to 2 silver flowers on the field, which also buff the team's damage based on his defense. His C1, in addition to providing energy, now also grants him 50% defense, improving his skill damage and team buff. It is a nice upgrade, but it's not that strong if you already reached 3000 defense, as this is the cap for his buff. And yes, each tier is ordered from best to the worst constellation. His C2 is the big one. The Fatal Blossom hits that were previously unleashed only from his burst will now be triggered as soon as his skill generates 4 stacks, and these hits will deal 300% of Albedo's defense. In addition, they will activate his Ascension 4 passive, granting 125 elemental mastery without needing to use his burst. Given how good the buffs he already received are, this makes C2 an amazing constellation, removing his reliance on his burst and buffing him even more. So for all the Albedo C1 hovers out there, this is a very worthwhile constellation to get. Klee used to be an okay carry, with a very uncomfortable playstyle that made her one of the hardest DPS units to play, which held her back for most people. Her kit buffs and Hexenzirkel passive revolve entirely around streamlining her normal attacks and enhanced charge attacks, by preventing her normal attack string from breaking, and by making her enhanced charge attack more consistent and much stronger. Her combos will still feel uncomfortable, but much less than before, and she now reaches the point where she becomes a respectably strong DPS, hitting around 90k damage at C0 if you perform her combos correctly. As for her constellations, which I missed in my Hexenzirkel guide, her C1 now has a chance to trigger a burst spark that deals extra damage when she hits an enemy. Klee also gains 60% attack for 12 seconds. This is an extremely strong constellation, especially with her improved kit, and is definitely worth getting if you love playing Klee. Her C2 did not receive any real change, but even before the buffs, it was probably the strongest constellation in the strong upgrade tier. Now, thanks to her amazing buffs and her powerful C1, getting her C2 can push her to around 110,000 damage, which is extremely impressive and puts her in competition with some of the top DPS characters in the game. Some of the other characters on this tier list did get indirect buff to their teams, from the Hexenzirkel update and the release of Durin. For example, Venti buffing Wanderer and Shao, Albedo buffing Itto teams, Durin working well with Ayato, Child, Ganyu in Vape, Melt or Virgin teams, and even Durin and Fischl can work well with Yaemiko or Yoimiya in Overload teams. But to be honest, even though these teams received a decent buff, it doesn't really affect the value of their constellations at all. And so, their placement on the tier list stays the same. Remember, this system lets you get up to 4 constellations in a full region cycle. So do not just focus on one. Plan ahead for the 4 constellations you want and the order you want them. The best value is still choosing only standard characters, as they are the easiest to get to C6, and getting the Masterless Stella Fortuna to level your hypercarries or reaction drivers to level 100. Mona is currently the best value for getting you both the Masterless Stella Fortuna and a very strong character at the same time. If you do play the characters in the worth getting tier, I do think you should pick them as well. But if you don't care about these characters and just want to pick the ones you love, then just go for it and don't get baited. The most important thing is enjoying the game and having fun with your favorite characters. And that's a wrap. If this video helped you in any way, consider giving it a like and subscribe for more Fit the Guides. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Cheers!